Hello and welcome to Beer and Philosophy. Cheers. Just spilled beer all over myself. Great. Should I change my shirt? I wonder how visible it is. Yeah, it looks pretty visible. All right, let's pause the video, change my shirt, and we'll go from there. Hello, welcome back to Beer and Philosophy. Cheers. So I spilled beer on myself, so I'm necessitating a wardrobe change. Unless you want to see, beer stains on me, which, hey, maybe you're into that, I don't know. Anyway, so it's ironic because I'm going to be talking about gender, and I switched into a pink shirt. So this reminds me of, two things. One is, I understand that historically, actually, pink used to be associated with being male. So that's interesting. And I guess there was a switch somewhere along the way. And then the other thing is that my dad used to say, it takes a real man to wear pink. I mean, I'm sure he still says that. I just haven't heard him say that in a while. So anyway, I want to talk about gender. So, bit of a complicated topic, but let's talk about this. So there's sex, biological sex, and there's gender. To my mind, those are distinct, different concepts, although they are interrelated. So are there more than two genders? This is a question, hence, genders. I would say yes. I'm currently convinced of that idea, and it depends on how you parse it. We'll talk about that in a minute. But let's first start with biological sex. So even there, I would say it's not as clear-cut as many people believe. Vis-a-vis, there are intersex people. And so even and we can get into, what does it mean to be intersex? There's a wide, variety there, though, I'm not a biologist, but, So even regarding biological sex, it's not as clear-cut as people like to think. That it's like, people like either you're a female or you're a male, and that's it. It's not always that clear-cut. Now, if we add in gender, what does that mean? To me, that's about a mental, social, emotional experience. And it's tied to biological sex in some way. It's not directly proportional to it. So it's a little difficult for me to articulate the exact distinction there. I do believe that gender is a social construct. Scary phrase there, right? Social construct. We can talk about that in the future. I'm not a postmodernist, by the way. There's a little preview of what I'll say about that. And I do believe that some things are socially constructed, and I think gender is one of those. So at a minimum, I would say people are going to identify gender-wise as either male or female. Fair enough. I think you'd probably, nearly everyone would agree with that part. And then what about, is there room for people who are not strictly identified as male or female? I would say yes. Historically we have examples of cultures that have included various variants on third genders. I'm not a historian, I don't know a lot of details there, but I am aware that did in fact happen. I presume continues to happen. And even outside of that historical context, it seems reasonable to me that people are going to identify somewhere along a spectrum of femininity and somewhere along a spectrum of masculinity. And so they're going to have kind of two values on these two different spectra. And so, it seems like people could identify as like zero on both. We might call it being agender without a gender. People might identify, strongly, perhaps even, 100% on both. Perhaps calling themselves bigender. Or there'll be some mix of these two spectra. And so yes, most people, I would hazard to guess, identify very strongly, perhaps exclusively, with either being female or being male. Fine. So most people probably fit comfortably in that binary distinction. However, there's a sizable minority of people who do not fit comfortably there. And I guess part of me just feels like, well, what's the problem? Like, so even I just think philosophically, it's like factually there are these differences. We can clearly see it in biological sex. We can get later into some evidence of why I think we can clearly see it in functional MRI brain scans of what I guess I might refer to as different genders. So I think there's empirical evidence of this. And even outside of that, to my mind, it's like, why not just allow people to identify how they want? Yeah. I'm sure, again, I'm offending everyone, hopefully, here. Anyway, I'm open to having conversations about these topics, and I hope to learn more and further articulate my beliefs and hopefully change my beliefs as time goes on. So, there are my thoughts on gender.